fisheries management. If you stop talking. We can first my favorite topic. Next. But will not be so long. Next. You have seen this before. Norway. Next. The economic dependency of the ocean. Next. Just a brief how we are organized. Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, and then the institutions under the fisheries part of the ministry. The ministry at large is, of course, have a lot more subordinate organizations. The most important here are the Directorate of Fisheries and the Institute of Marine Research. Next. We have a defined and agreed parliamentary decision on the fisheries policy. It shall contribute to an economical viable development. The policy. And sustainable management is not an objective. It is conditional. We have moved it away from being an objective to something which we have to take as a basis for implementing other objectives. And the market orientation is an element in our fisheries policy development. Next. Interesting is to look how the objectives have changed during the years. In 1970, employment and coast-rural settlement was the main objective. Profitability, ecological sustainability came as 2 and 3. This is turned opposite. Now, as I said, the ecological sustainability is a conditionality. It's a prerequisite for obtaining profitability without subsidies. Because in the 1970s we had subsidies. So the way we could put employment and coast-rural settlement as the first priority was that the discrepancy between the income and the costs was paid through the subsidy. Next. We look upon the fisheries management with 2 set of measures. One is to maintain the fish productivity, and second is that we adjust the catch capacity to stock renewal, and in that way we create economical viable fleet, which we have to as we are export oriented and as we do not have any subsidies any longer. Next. The management regime, the way we have organized it, is that fishing capacity, structure policy measures is one element. The other element is research, regulatory measures, control and sanction, who goes directly on keeping the catches within the advice. I'm out. Next. The institutions which are involved in this is first and foremost, if we leave the number on the top a little. The Directorate and the Ministry is the main regulatory bodies. Our Coast Guard is important in our control. Our Coast Guard is a branch of the Navy. So there is a military who do the Coast Guard and fisheries inspection for us, and that has developed as a very fruitful and very good cooperation. And for the Navy, it's nice to have something to do in peace time as well. And they get new boats because they have this important role, which is also nice when you are a boatman. And then sanctions with police, court. You can get in prison for violating fisheries regulations. And on top, we have the Institute of Marine Research and the International Council, which I come back to, who are our advisory body. Next. The reason why we have developed, I would say, a fairly successful fisheries management system is that if we didn't have that, no one could live that place, which I showed you this morning, where they have been exporting fish to Italy for 585 years. If the fish stocks broke down, people would have to move from that island. It's the only living opportunity. As you can see, there's really not very much to do on land there. Next. This is just to remind ourselves that the scientists has to be able to explain to us managers what they actually are talking about. Next. We, in the Northeast Atlantic, all North Atlantic, we have established a council for the exploration of the sea, which coordinates marine science, and where scientists from all the member states meet on a regular basis in committees and advisory committee, going through all the knowledge on the stocks which the countries or regional organization has asked for advice on, and give us an advice according to what we have asked, fishing pattern, total allowable catch, and so on and so on. Next. It is an organization established back in 1902. And as I said, it gives advice on the harvesting of living marine resources. And it is the scientists from the different nations, from the different institutes that are that do the work in ICES. ICES itself has no research role. They coordinate the research and produce the reports based on the knowledge which the participating scientists from the nations can provide in their meetings. Next. So the advice is delivered at the time requested from the countries, so we can feed into the decision process. And annually, at the moment, this organization provides fisheries advice on 240, 250 stocks, and on that is advice on outtake. Next. The advice format is like this. The landings, of course, is based on the fishes control and inspection in each of the countries. Based on that, they are able to assess fishing mortality. Next. Recruitment and spawning stock biomass are. So we get the advice in this format, and of course then with some text what this applies with respect to outtake next year. So the most important thing with ICES is that it's unbiased and non-political, and it's actually accepted as so. And the last 15 years we have not, in the negotiation on how to share the quota, discussed the quota. Everyone has accepted that the advice from ICES, the biological advice, is the truth, or if it's not the truth, it's at least the best truth. Next. Another thing is that it is transparent. You can apply and sit in the meetings and listen to the deliberations which lead to the advice. It's a totally transparent process. Okay, look, that was the science part of our management system. Law and order. The law of the sea is it's all in. That was an example of blue economy. There were we. I mean, the law of the sea is the basis and should be the basis for all countries, especially when you have to cooperate with other countries on the management. Next. The international legal framework. The important thing is the 200-mile economic zone when we are discussing fisheries, and the fish stock agreement when we have fisheries which we share that are outside 200-mile economic zones as well. Next. Norway, we have three main laws to regulate the fisheries. First is the Participation Act to regulate who can fish. Then we have the central law, the Living Marine Resource Act, which is also fairly new, who regulates, or in accordance with the law, we can more or less do whatever we want, as long as it is sensible. We can regulate how much, how, where, when. In principle, we could say that there were only blue boats who could fish. We have not done that, but in principle we could do that. The third law is a special law who regulates the sales of fish in the first sale from fisherman to producer. Next. I'll come back to that. The purpose of the Participation Act is to adjust catch capacity to the resource base, to improve profitability, and to ensure that the coastal societies are benefited from the fishing. So there are limitations with respect to moving fishing capacity away from certain regions. There are limitations on that because it is a political objective, a political aim to keep most of our coastal societies alive. Next. That was the same picture, so we can jump to it. The Marine Resource Law entered into force in 2009. And it's a modern law in the way that it has precautionary approach, ecosystem approach as elements in the law. In this new law, we strengthened the sanction system for violation of the regulations. And an important issue, probably in the future economic, is that it also includes outtake and benefit from genetic resources. Next. The Raw Fish Act, as we call it, it states that all first-hand sale has to be handled through fishermen's sales organizations. There are 6 organizations and they're limited by geographic or species. They are protected by law, but they also have to act according to the law that has set them down. They determine the minimum prices. So in principle, it's the fisherman who says that we will not sell our fish lower than at this price. They have negotiations with the Buyers Association, and of course, they have to find a reasonable price so all the parties have a profit, and it all has to be related to the market price, because if you have to buy on a loss, you won't buy, and then they won't get it sold. So it's a bit anachronistic and communistic, but it works fairly well. Next, it's more a matter of principle. In principle, many are against it, but that's a principle action. What do we do? We have established limited access. More or less all our fisheries access is closed. Very few opportunities to just start fishing without buying out someone who are already in. We exercise in the individual vessel quotas. We try to have market-like instruments when it comes to the structure policy reducing the fleet. We have eliminated subsidies, and the main aim that we shall have stability and predictability in the policies, because fishing, there are variations in the fishing because of natural variations in the fish stock, so it's even more important in fishing than in other industries that the policies are predictable, so we don't add up to the variations in the fishing itself. Next. So the management objectives are sustainability, profitability, maintain settlement, and have a diversified fleet structure ownership. And these are, to some extent, conflicting goals. Next. Challenge is that there is an overall productivity growth. And in order to compete in the way that you have to get good crew, good officers on the boat, you have to be able to pay the good salary. And in Norway they are competing with the oil and petroleum industry with the same key staff. So they have to pay them well, they have to have double crew, so people have the opportunity to be on land and not have to fish 300 days a year, which they had earlier. So, and the only way to do that has been to increase the quotas on each vessel, which means that we have to reduce the number of vessels, because the quota level we have at the moment is more or less what we expect to have in the future if we manage our stock well. And it's estimated that there is a technological capacity creep at around 3% per annum, so the fleet gets 3% more efficient. And if that means that you have to reduce the number of boats to 3%. And the resources are limited, so we cannot increase the production as you can in any other industry if you have a market. And prices are fairly stable. So the only way to increase your income is to be more efficient. Next. And we have not defined any target that the capacity shall be reduced with X or Y. We have given the industry the opportunity to merge vessel and quotas. And there we have set a limit how much they can do it. And the psychology in this is that when you say that you shall reduce with 20%, the automatic reaction is no, that is too much, I only want to reduce 15%. But when we have said that you are only allowed to merge 3 quotas, they say, no, that is not enough, we want to merge 4. So that has worked fantastically. We didn't understand that when we made it rule, that how it will work. Next. And as I mentioned, there is a shift in management perspective from short-term yield to optimize the long-term yield. And gradually, when knowledge permits, that we take into account kind of what's called the ecosystem consideration, protection of biodiversity, vulnerable habitats. I mean, we have some very nice but difficult to see coral reefs on some 100 meters deep, so it's not exactly a tourist attraction, but we have protected them. Next. So our approach is to increase economic output and have management strategies and harvest control rules that optimizes the long-term economic benefit from our fish stocks. Next. And then, as said, as scientific knowledge becomes available, incorporate additional consideration in management. This is complicated, and we don't do it before we feel that this adds some value to the management decisions. Next. In the new law, the law from 2009, we established a principle that fisheries management are responsible for regularly assessing the need to regulate all harvesting, which means that, there are a number of small stocks where we had no regulations. But in order to safeguard that these fish stocks are not overfished, we are obliged to regularly check in some way or another, and we will do that through getting reports from the vessels that are fishing on this fish. We can get catch per unit effort and other indicators on how this stock is being, how it goes with the stock. Okay. So next, that's Liverpool. If you we share 90% of our catch with other on stocks. 90% of our catch is on stocks that is shared with other countries. And that requires that we cooperate. We cannot, the coast stock is shared with Russia. Russia cannot have one management regime and we another one on the same stock. That would be totally meaningless. and dangerous. So cooperation is fundamental. Next. We have 4 bilateral, 5 coastal states, and 5, 6 regional fisheries organizations. So we have 14 negotiations on quota agreements and management of joint fish stocks every year between October and December. It's a pretty busy period in our department. Next. So in December every year, research is given from ICES. We have concluded the quota negotiations, which means that we know the total national allowable catch. The quotas are agreed and set. Legal framework is in place. Fisheries administration is in place most of the time. And the fisheries organizations are mobilizing. And then, next. If we look at 12 o'clock on the clock, that's December. We have finished the quota negotiations, so we know how much fish we have. This is put into an advisory system where the director of the fisheries will make proposals. We will have a 2-day meeting with the industry, NGOs, different kind of organizations belonging to the industry and so-called stakeholders. Around 3 o'clock, that the meeting is. That will normally be in the first week of December. And proposals from the directorate and the advisory meeting is sent to the ministry. We get it 5:30. So around 6 o'clock we have taken the decisions, and they have all to be taken before 1st of January, because then the fishermen start fishing. And then from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock we will follow the fishing through the year, because we will adjust regulations if necessary, because normally we do not know how nature will behave the next year. So we have guesstimates, and then we adapt the regulations. And so this means that we are doing regulations continuously. There's always a regulatory issue at stake in the ministry. Next. And we have a very detailed way of dividing the total TAC is first divided between trawlers and the coastal vessels. And then the quote on the coastal vessels is divided between coastal limited access below 28 meters, the blue, and then longliners above 28 meters, and then a group with open access. And below this again, each vessel have a specific quota, which when we set the system, the quota were based on the length of the vessel. Then that has been frozen. So if I have a quota based on a 12-meter long vessel, if I buy a 100-meter long boat, I don't get a bigger quota. So the quotas are now set, and you are free to build what kind of boat you would like to have. If you want to have a football pitch on your boat, why should we bother? In the law, it is stated that the fish belongs to the Norwegian people, and the people in Norway. And based on that, we have decided that it is the right for all the people in Norway to see how this fish, which is my fish, your fish, how it is being distributed. So we can go in an open internet base and see on every fishing vessel in Norway how big quota they have on different species and how much they have landed up till today, normally a maximum 1 day delay. Yes. So the result of all this is that we have abolished subsidies. Catches are, well, it's not stable, but as stable as can be expected, and the trend is good. The important thing is to see that the number of fishermen has gone very much down. There were around 120,000 fishermen in 1950. which is a lot, because then we were 3.5 million people. And now we have around 9,500. And the red line is the productivity, catch per fisherman, which in Norway is approximately 200 tons. Next. The vessel profitability shows a nice upward curve the last 40 years. Next. And the catch per fisherman, which is the red, is higher than would have been necessary to obtain an average wage, which is looked as the average income for an industrial worker. Next. So the conclusions are fewer vessels and fewer fishermen is necessary. Subsidies will only delay a necessary transition. With strong output control, harvesting capacity is primarily an economic issue. Because, the fleet we have could fish much more than it does. But they have decided that they want to build new boats even if they don't need it. Capacity adjustment is a continuous process. This never stops. Like the regulations, it never stops. And the industry is able to adopt without government intervention. Next. So, what is this? No. Go back. Stay there. They have not answered. If you look at this picture, they look fairly alike. Upper left, that is at midnight. Upper right is at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Left down, 12 degrees in the water maybe. Right down, 28 degrees. So it can look similar, but it is very different. The point with this is to say that we can learn from each other. And next, don't invade Russia in November. Learn from other people's mistakes. Thank you very much.